The phone rang, and my whole body forgot how to breathe. Not because I missed him, not because I loved them, but because the voice on the other end sounded like a closed door slamming on my heart again. Before I begin, if you care about stories like mine, please like this video and subscribe. It means more to me than you know. It was a Sunday afternoon, soft and quiet, the kind of quiet you don't trust when you've survived too much. I was sitting by the window with a lukewarm cup of ginger tea cradled between my palms, the steam already gone, like hope after a long season of crying. Outside, the rain wasn't falling hard, just tapping the glass gently, like someone asking permission to enter. My screen lit up with a number I didn't have saved, but my bones recognized it. I hesitated, my thumb hovered, my stomach tightened like a knot pulled too fast. I answered anyway. "Hello?" And then her voice. Sharp, breathless, not a greeting, not a question, a command. "Lena, you need to come to St. Bartholomew Medical right now, right now." She was shouting over hospital noise, metal wheels rolling, intercom calls, footsteps rushing past. "My son, your husband, he collapsed. They're saying surgery, deposit, paperwork. We need $35,000. Bring it now." 35,000? The number fell from her mouth like she was asking for a glass of water, like I was still the same woman she used to send to the market with exact change counted into my hand. My teacup trembled. I set it down too hard, and it clicked against the saucer like a tiny warning. "Ma'am," I said slowly, so calmly I surprised myself. "I think you're confused." There was a beat of silence. Then her voice turned ugly, familiar ugly. "Confused? I am your mother-in-law. You are his wife. Stop acting smart and come." My heart didn't ache the way it used to. It cracked in a different place. Because 3 months ago, a judge finalized our divorce, and the ink wasn't even dry before she told everyone I was spare weight. And now she was calling me like I was a spare wallet. I leaned my forehead against the cool window glass and whispered, "By what right are you calling me?" And that's when she said the words that made my hands go cold. "If you don't come, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." But that was only the beginning. I didn't always speak to her like that. No, I used to call her Mama Voss with a sweetness I didn't even feel, because I was raised to believe a woman's peace was something she had to earn with obedience. When I married her son, Calvin, people said I married up. They said his family was respectable, old money, good neighborhood, big house with polished floors that reflected your face like a mirror. But mirrors don't show you what's behind the walls. On my wedding night, I still had pins in my hair, my feet were swollen, my dress smelled like perfume and nerves. Calvin had already loosened his tie when his mother called us into the living room. She sat straight-backed, hands folded, a paper placed neatly on her lap like it was scripture. "Lena," she said, "welcome to this family. There are rules." Rules. That word should have sent me running, but I smiled instead, young and hungry for approval. She slid the paper forward. The first line said, "All income will be managed by the head of the home." I blinked. Managed by you? Calvin didn't look up. He was scrolling through his phone as if the words weren't about me. "Mama knows best," he murmured. "Don't make it a thing." And just like that, my paycheck stopped belonging to me. Every month, my salary went into an account she controlled. Every morning, she handed me cash like I was a child begging for allowance. The amount never changed, no matter how prices rose, no matter how tired I looked, no matter how much I gave. She'd count it into my palm and say, "Don't waste it. You women love wasting." I became the woman who worked full-time and still cleaned a house so large it echoed when you cried in it. I became the woman who cooked meals that had to taste like respect. I became the woman who learned to swallow her feelings because silence was cheaper than conflict. And Calvin? He smiled when the house was clean, he kissed my forehead when dinner was warm, he called me overdramatic when I asked for basic kindness. I used to sit in the bathroom at night, door locked, just to breathe like I was alone in the world. And sometimes I'd stare at my own reflection and wonder, how can a home be so beautiful and still feel like a cage? What I didn't know then was that cages aren't built with bars. They're built with people who convince you that you deserve them. And the first time I tried to stand up for myself, everything changed. I had no idea what truth was waiting for me.
The first hint wasn't lipstick on a collar. It was the phone. Calvin used to toss it on the couch like it was nothing. Then one day, he started placing it face down, like it carried a secret it didn't want me to see. He began taking calls on the porch. He began working late. He began wearing cologne that didn't smell like him, sharp and sweet, like a stranger's promise. I told myself not to be suspicious, because women like me were trained to doubt ourselves before we ever doubted our husbands. But one night, while I was folding laundry, his phone lit up. A message preview flashed across the screen. "Did you talk to your mom? I need the transfer by morning." My fingers froze on a tiny sock. Need the transfer. I didn't even think. My hand moved like it belonged to another woman, one who had already cried too much to stay polite. I unlocked the phone, and what I saw didn't come in the form of romance. It came in numbers, transfers, receipts, screenshots of bank confirmations, a pattern so clear it felt like a slap made of fax. Money was leaving the account his mother controlled and showing up in places I'd never seen. A boutique hotel, a prenatal clinic, a luxury baby store. Then I saw her name, Sloan, a woman whose profile photo showed perfect nails and a smile that looked hungry. The messages weren't just flirtation, they were instructions. Send me the money. Your mom promised. Don't disappoint me, Cal. I sat down so fast my knees popped, my chest tightened, my mouth went dry. In the kitchen, the kettle kept whistling like it was warning me I was about to burn. When Calvin walked in, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just looked at him and asked, "Where is my money going?" He stared at me like I'd asked something rude. "Why were you in my phone?" he snapped. Not, "I'm sorry," not, "Let me explain." No, he made my pain the crime. His mother appeared in the doorway like she'd been summoned by the scent of trouble. What is this noise? I held up the phone, my hands shaking now, not from fear, but from the weight of finally seeing. "Mama Voss," I said, voice thin, "are you giving my money to Calvin?" She didn't flinch. She smiled, a slow, cold smile that made my stomach drop. "A man needs support," she said softly, "and you should be grateful you have a husband at all." Grateful. That word tasted like dirt, and in that moment I realized something terrifying. They weren't hiding from me, they were hiding inside me, inside my fear, my training, my patience, and the second I stopped being quiet, they began planning what to do with me. What came next shattered everything I believed. With shouting, that would have been too honest. They humiliated me with politeness. A week after I confronted Calvin, his mother cooked my favorite stew. The smell of thyme and onions filled the house like a false apology. The table was set neatly, candles lit, like they wanted to pretend we were a family. Calvin even reached for my hand. "My love," he said, voice soft, "we need to talk." I should have known. When a man who's been cold suddenly becomes warm, something is burning behind his back. After dinner, Mama Voss cleared her throat and folded her hands like a pastor about to preach. "Lena," she began, "Calvin has an opportunity, a business move,
but he needs capital." I stared at her. "And?" She tilted her head. "You have that land your father left you, that little plot outside the city. Sell it." My stomach twisted. That land wasn't little, it was my father's pride, a piece of his lifetime, something he told me to keep in case the world ever turns its back on you. And here was the world sitting across from me with a napkin in its lap, asking to take it? Calvin leaned forward, eyes shining with practiced sincerity. "Just for a while, baby. I'll repay it. We'll buy better land later." I looked between them and felt a strange calm settle in my bones. It wasn't peace, it was clarity, because suddenly I understood their love had always been conditional. Love to them wasn't care, it was access. Access to my work, my loyalty, my youth, my inheritance. I set down my spoon carefully. It clinked against the bowl, the sound sharp in the quiet room. "No," I said. Mama Voss's smile didn't move, but her eyes sharpened. "No? No." Calvin's face tightened. "Lena, don't be selfish." Selfish. That word again. As if protecting the one thing my father left me was greed. As if giving everything away wasn't enough. That night, I lay in bed with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle and creak like it was whispering secrets. And through the thin wall, I heard them. Calvin, anxious, Mama Voss, low and firm. "If she won't do it willingly, we'll do it another way." My heart stopped. My hands turned ice cold under the blanket. Because I knew that voice. That was the voice she used when she talked about people like they were furniture. And I realized something. They weren't asking anymore. They were preparing. But I didn't know how far they were willing to go. I left quietly. Not because I was weak, because I was learning how to survive without giving them the satisfaction of watching me break. I moved into my mother's small apartment with my daughter, Maribel, and I slept on a pull-out couch for the first week, listening to my child breathe like her lungs were the only proof God still loved me. I filed for divorce the next morning. In court, Calvin wore a clean suit and a wounded expression, like he was the victim of my decision. Mama Voss sat beside him like a queen at judgment, her lips pressed into a line of fake restraint. Calvin's lawyer said words that made my ears ring. "Mrs. Rhodes has been unstable," he claimed. "She has no financial control. She is emotional. She's living with her mother. My client believes the child would be better with him." I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because I came prepared. I had printed stubs, bank records, written statements from my employer that proved my salary and how it had been withdrawn in patterns. I had emails, screenshots, and most importantly, I had a notarized deed proving my father's land was mine alone. Mama Voss stared at my documents as if they were dirty. Calvin stared at me as if I'd betrayed him by refusing to be robbed quietly. The judge granted me custody. Calvin was ordered to pay support. And Mama Voss? She walked out of that courtroom like she was still above consequences, but her jaw was so tight I thought her teeth might crack. Outside, she leaned close enough for me to smell her perfume, something floral and expensive, the scent of control. "This isn't over," she whispered. "You think you've won because you're holding a child. A child is a burden, Lena. Life will teach you that." I swallowed the tremble in my throat. "Life already taught me," I said softly. "It taught me who you are." I walked away with my daughter's hand in mine, and for the first time in years, the air tasted like possibility. But 3 months later, that phone call came, and as I stared at the unknown number on my screen, I wondered, was this karma, or was this another trap dressed as tragedy? Because what I didn't know then was that Calvin's new life had already started collapsing, and the woman he betrayed me for wasn't who anyone thought she was. But that was only the beginning.
News travels in circles. Even when you don't ask for it, it finds you. Through whispers at the grocery store, through an old neighbor's smirk, through a mutual friend who just thought you should know. They told me Calvin moved Sloane into the house within a week. Mama Voss introduced her at church like a trophy. She's refined, Mama Voss bragged, educated, finally someone who understands our family values. Family values. That phrase used to bruise me, but now it just sounded like a joke told by people who don't know they're the punchline. At first, they said Sloane acted sweet. She rubbed her belly with a delicate hand and spoke softly, like she was auditioning for the role of perfect wife. Then the sweetness soured. Sloane started ordering Mama Voss around in her own kitchen. "Not that tea," she'd say. "It makes me nauseous. This house smells old. Calvin promised me upgrades. I need new furniture." And Calvin tried to keep up. He began taking out loans. Not violent loans, just the slow, crushing kind. Credit cards, personal lines, borrowing from friends with stiff smiles and fake confidence. Mama Voss, who used to count my grocery money down to the last dollar, suddenly stopped watching the budget because Sloane made her feel like she was finally getting what she wanted: a grandchild, a legacy, a second chance to erase the mistake of my daughter being born. And then, just like that, the dream started cracking. One afternoon, I ran into Calvin at a pharmacy. He looked smaller. Not in height, he was still tall, but in spirit, like life had been wringing him out. Sloane stood beside him, snapping at the cashier because a prenatal vitamin was too cheap. Calvin's eyes met mine for half a second, and in that half second, I saw regret, quick and ashamed, like a candle trying to light in a room that refuses warmth. I walked past without speaking. I didn't do it to be cruel. I did it because I knew something he didn't. The best revenge isn't yelling. It's healing so loudly that your peace becomes a mirror, one they can't bear to look into. But behind them, as I walked away, I heard Sloane say, "Hurry up, you're embarrassing me." And Calvin didn't answer. He just lowered his head. That's when my stomach tightened with an old instinct, because I recognized that silence. That was the silence of a man being controlled. And I wondered, was Sloane really pregnant with Calvin's child? Or was that baby a key to unlock everything Mama Voss hoarded? I didn't know it yet, but the truth was already moving like a shadow behind them, and soon it would step into the light. What came next shattered everything I believed. When I arrived at St. Bartholomew Medical that night, the lobby smelled like disinfectant and cold metal. Bright lights buzzed overhead like anxious insects. My shoes tapped the tile, and each step sounded louder than it should, like the building wanted everyone to hear I had returned. Mama Voss was in the waiting area. She looked reduced. Not weak, she was too proud to be weak, but worn, like a curtain left in the sun too long. Her hands were clenched around papers, her eyes were swollen, and when she saw me, her whole face shifted into something that almost looked like relief. Almost. "Lena," she gasped, standing. "You came. Thank God. Do you have it?" I didn't answer that question, because I didn't come to hand her money. I came to look the past in the eyes and see if it had finally learned shame. A doctor stepped out, mask pulled down, expression heavy. "Family of Calvin Rhodes?" Mama Voss lurched forward. "I'm his mother." The doctor's voice was calm, clinical, cruel in its steadiness. "He needs surgery, and afterward he may require long-term care. We need the deposit to proceed with the next stage of treatment."
Mama Voss turned to me like a woman drowning. "Lena, please." Her voice cracked, and it did something strange inside me. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel victory. I felt a hollow ache, like my heart was remembering the woman I used to be, the woman who would have emptied her savings just to be called good. Mama Voss grabbed my sleeve. "With all of this, he's still your child's father." I stepped back gently like you step away from a hot stove. "My child has a father," I said softly, "but I haven't had a family in years." Her face twisted. "You heartless girl, you're going to let him suffer?" I leaned closer, voice low. "Do you remember when I begged you for help? Do you remember when you controlled my paycheck and told me I didn't deserve more? Do you remember how you treated my daughter like she was less than human?" Her mouth opened. No words came. Then she did something I never thought I would see. Mama Voss sank down on the hospital floor. Right there, in front of strangers and nurses and passing families, she grabbed my legs with trembling hands. I'm sorry. Please, please save my son." The tile was cold under her knees. Her sobs were wet and ugly and real. And for a moment, the world held its breath with me, because I realized I wasn't just watching karma, I was standing inside it. But the truth I was about to reveal would change everything. I had no idea what truth was waiting for me. Mama Voss kept saying the same word like it was a prayer. Grandchild. As if that baby in Sloane's belly was the only thing that mattered. "Please," she sobbed, "even if you hate me, think of the baby, Calvin's son, our blood." I stared down at her, and something in me softened, not into forgiveness, but into clarity, because I had learned something 2 days earlier, something I hadn't planned to use, but she left me no choice. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. My fingers were steady, even though my chest was tight. "What I'm about to show you," I said quietly, "is not revenge." My voice trembled. "It's truth." Mama Voss lifted her face, eyes wet, searching mine like I might hand her hope. I opened a folder. Photos, dates, messages. I showed her a picture of Sloane at a resort, laughing with a man twice Calvin's age, wedding ring on his finger, his arm around her waist like she belonged to him. Mama Voss blinked hard. That can't be." I swiped to an ultrasound report. "Look at the gestational age," I whispered. "Count the weeks." Her lips moved silently. Her hands started shaking. "She told me she was 3 months, Mama Voss breathed. "She lied," I said gently. "That baby is over 5 months along." Mama Voss's eyes widened like her mind was trying to run away from the math. Then I showed her the message thread, Sloane texting her friend. Not long, not poetic, just cruel. "I'm keeping this baby. The real father won't claim it. I need stability. Calvin's mother is desperate for a grandson, easy to play. Once I'm in the house, I'm set." Mama Voss made a sound that wasn't a cry. It was a small, broken gasp, like air leaving a balloon. She fell backward onto the chair, staring at my phone as if it were a snake. "No," she whispered. No, I sacrificed." I watched her face fold inward. All those years of pride, all that cruelty justified by legacy, all of it collapsing into one terrible realization. She destroyed my family for a lie. The room felt too bright, too loud, too real. A nurse called a name in the distance. A baby cried somewhere down the hall. The world kept moving like nothing happened, but Mama Voss sat frozen. And I knew this was the moment she would remember on her deathbed. Not the day she kicked me out, not the day she took my money, but the day she learned she had been fooled by the very hunger that made her cruel. And behind those doors, Calvin was still fighting to live. But the truth was, even if he lived, nothing would ever go back to the way it was. What came next shattered everything I believed.
After I showed her the truth, Mama Voss didn't beg the same way. She didn't have the strength. She looked old, truly old for the first time since I'd known her, like her bones finally admitted time had been winning. "I ruined him," she whispered. Her voice wasn't sharp now. It was empty. And standing there, I felt something rise in me that surprised even me. Not love, not pity, something quieter, a kind of dignity. Because I realized if I handed her money, it wouldn't be mercy. It would be permission for her to believe she could still use me. So I said, slowly, carefully, "I'm not paying $35,000. Her eyes flickered with panic. "Lena." I held up my hand. "Listen, I'm not doing this because I want him to suffer. I'm doing it because I have a daughter whose future depends on me. The same daughter you treated like she was nothing." She swallowed hard. I leaned closer, voice low, grandmother soft but firm as stone. "But I'm not you," I said. "I won't become cruel just because you were." I pulled out a business card and placed it in her trembling hand. "A charity foundation works with this hospital," I told her. "They review urgent cases. I'll call someone I know. That's what I can do. Not from my pocket, but from my conscience." She stared at the card like it was a foreign language. I stepped aside, dialed the number, and spoke in a calm voice that surprised me, like a woman who had finally learned she didn't need to explain her goodness. When I hung up, my shoulders loosened. Mama Voss looked up at me. Her eyes were full of something I'd never seen there before. Respect. Not the kind she gives out, the kind she is forced to feel. I didn't stay to watch her cry. I didn't stay to watch the doors swing open. I walked outside, and the night air hit my face like cold water. The rain had stopped. The road was shiny with streetlights, like the city had been rinsed. I sat in my car and placed my hands on the steering wheel. They were steady, and for the first time in years, I felt a strange peace, not because the past was fixed, but because the past could no longer command me. But life has a way of finishing its lessons, and karma doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it arrives with time, and what happened 2 years later sealed everything. But that was only the beginning. 2 years passed the way hard years do, quietly, without permission. My daughter grew taller. Her laugh came back. My hair grew a little more gray at the roots, and I stopped dyeing it because I was tired of pretending I hadn't survived. I moved into a better place. Not big, just safe, warm, mine. I got promoted at work, slowly, honestly, with long nights and early mornings. And one December afternoon, as the city dressed itself in Christmas lights, I stood by my office window with a cup of tea and watched the world glow like it still believed in second chances. That's when my assistant said, "There's someone here to see you." I didn't expect anyone, but when I walked out into the lobby, I saw her. Mama Voss. She looked smaller than I remembered. Her coat was clean but worn. Her hands held a small paper bag like it weighed more than it should. She didn't walk like a queen anymore. She walked like someone who finally understood the cost of pride. She stopped in front of me and swallowed. I didn't know where else to go," she said. I didn't invite her in right away. I just stood there, breathing, listening to the hum of the building, the faint clink of elevator doors. "What happened?" I asked. Her eyes filled. "Calvin survived," she whispered, "but he never went back to being who he was. The care, the bills, the debt, it swallowed everything. We sold the house. The house? The house she once held over my head like a crown. Gone.
She held out the paper bag. Inside was a small knitted scarf, handmade, uneven stitches, the kind an older woman makes when she has too many regrets and not enough time. "It's for Maribel," she said. "I know I don't deserve to give her anything. I wanted her to have something soft." My throat tightened, not because I forgave her, but because I understood something that day. Sometimes people don't change because they want to. They change because life finally removes every illusion they used as armor. Mama Voss looked down at her hands. "I was wrong," she said. "About you, about your daughter, about what matters." I nodded once, slowly. "I know," I said. And in that moment, the opening hook finally made sense to me. That phone call wasn't about Calvin, it was about control. It was about a woman trying, one last time, to pull me back into a role I had outgrown. But I didn't belong to that story anymore. I belonged to the life I built with my own 2 hands. I looked at Mama Voss and said the truest thing I had learned. Kindness is holy, but it's not something people are entitled to. She cried quietly, and I let her, because sometimes the last justice isn't punishment, it's clarity. And the moral I want you to carry, sweetheart, is this: if they only value you when they need you, they never loved you. They loved your usefulness. So build your life where your worth is not measured by what you can give away. And never, ever let anyone turn your softness into a chain. And that is where my peace began.